There's nobody calling right now. Let me know if you want to make a call.
Hey guys, welcome. We're going to give it a few minutes while everybody gets into the room. While we're waiting, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from, or maybe what afternoon beverage you're having. I'm joining today from Virginia, where it is very windy, but it's at least sunny and beautiful. Julia, Catalina, where are you guys calling in from?
I am calling in from sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, I bet it's not windy and cold there.
No, it's about 80 degrees and sunny.
That's great.
And
Let's see.
Catalina's coming from Charleston.
Yeah, Charleston's 70 here and sunny.
Oh,
Carolina, no, West Virginia.
we have people joining from everywhere. We've got Texas, Indianapolis, Alaska,
Wow.
Phoenix. Well, before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar. You'll get a copy of the recording and the slide deck later today. If you have any questions, please drop those in the QA box of Zoom. We're going to save some time at the end and make sure that we get those answered. Hopefully you guys are all familiar with Bloomerang, but if not, we are an online platform for your organization's fundraising, event, volunteer, and donor management needs. There'll be a chance at the end that you can let us know if you'd like to learn more about us. Before I turn it over, I do want to take a quick second and point out that we do have our first fundraiser focus week of the year coming up February 26th through the 29th. This one is on fundraising strategies for any size gift. You can scan the QR code, or we can also drop it in the chat if you guys would like to get registered for that. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Catalina Parker and Julia Devine. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. All right, let me just share my screen and pull up my presentation. And we will start from the beginning. All right, can everyone see that? We're good. All right, Catalina, you're nodding. Awesome.
You got it.
Cool. All right, so today we are talking nonprofit communication trends for fundraising success in 2024. And just want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us today and coming from all over the country, it looks like. It's really awesome. So as Kate mentioned, we're your hosts today. I'm Julia, and I'm joined by my co-founder, Catalina. She's got a little bit of a cold, so she's sitting this one out, but she's in the background for moral support. We are the co-founders of Divine Parker Consulting, and we are also the creators of the Relatable Nonprofit Instagram account. So if you guys haven't heard of the account, would love if you guys could go over and give that a follow after the presentation. It's kind of a passion project, just something fun to talk about the ups and downs of nonprofit life that we all experience every day. We've been consulting for about 2 years. I was previously a director of development. Catalina was a director of digital marketing, both in nonprofits. Catalina also worked for a time as a program officer at a foundation. And we started consulting about 2 years ago. So today we are talking about trends, and I would love if you all could start by just posting some of your guesses for what you think the trends are going to be in 2024. I would love to see some of those in the chat. And I actually don't know if I can see the chat, but oh, here it is. Cool. Focus on video, use of AI, golf tournaments. Cool. A lot of AI. Video. Awesome. Cat emojis. Great. All right, cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, guys. So we're going to talk about the top trends that we're seeing. There's a lot of information in this presentation. Kate did say we are going to share the slides with you after, but just sit tight, take some notes. I'm really excited to share all this with you. So we are starting with talking about one of my absolute favorite communication methods, something that we not only use with all of our nonprofit clients, but something that we're also implementing for ourselves as a part of our business marketing. And that is going to be email marketing. So in 2024, focusing on building your email list is going to be paramount. And there's a lot of reasons why email is going to be a top priority for you. So a couple of those reasons, I don't know if any of you have done any direct mail campaigns before, Not knocking direct mail, because I do actually really like it. And I think there's a place for it in your communication strategy, but it's so expensive. If any of you have done it, it's thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. A client that we have that is using it right now is spending about that just to put a campaign together. So if you are just starting out, if you are new in the nonprofit sector, if you are on a budget, which I know many of you are, it is just going to be cost prohibitive compared to what you can do with an email list. So that's one reason, just the cost. It literally just takes your time. You write out an email, lay it out, and you send it, and you are getting out in front of your audience. So the other reason, and I want to talk a little bit about this because I actually purposely did not focus this presentation so much on social media. I know there's a lot of talk in the last 10 years, 5 years, social media is everything. I think building an audience is a really important part of your communication strategy on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. However, there are some limitations to that audience, and it's that it's really not yours. If your account gets shadow banned, if you are locked out of your account for whatever reason, if the algorithm spontaneously changes, as we know that it does, what you were doing yesterday might not be working tomorrow. And if people are leaving, they're unfollowing, or you're not getting out in front of people like you used to, those people are disappearing and you just don't have them anymore. So you really don't own that list until someone takes the leap, goes to your website and signs up and gives you their email address. So I just want to point that out because I think I see a lot of nonprofits pouring resources into just building out their social media profiles, getting to 10,000, 20,000 followers. And that's really awesome. And it should be part of your strategy. But having an email list, a proprietary list that even if you lost your Instagram account tomorrow, your Facebook account tomorrow, you could email that whole list and say, hey, our Facebook page went down, but we've set up a new one. You can follow us there, but you've still got access to those people and it's free to contact them. So those are just some of the reasons that I love email, and we're going to talk a lot about that in this presentation. Okay, so that being said, I want to talk about a topic that I know a lot of you don't love, and that's your tech stack. I don't have a huge background in technology. I don't, I'm not great with using my computer and all of that, but I think a lot of people have this feeling, particularly in nonprofits, that I got into the work because of the mission. I got into the work because I love fundraising, but I've never really been a technology person. And for that reason, you're just not investing a lot of time and a lot of your energy into understanding how you should be building your tech stack so that it works for your organization. And that's a big mistake because technology is only going to become more sophisticated, and it's going to be the backbone, the skeleton of your whole operation as you scale. So in 2024, a huge trend is going to be getting your tech stack right. And what I mean by this is really streamlining the data so that your systems are talking to each other. So don't get freaked out. We'll take it really simple. I want to talk to you about 2 systems that you absolutely need in 2024, and you have no excuses for not having them. So number 1 is a CRM. This is a customer relationship management system. Bloomerang is one. There's several other really good ones on the market as well. This is going to manage your donor data. This is going to manage your supporters' contact information. It is going to manage other data about their interactions with your organization. So managing your data in Excel is not cutting it. Managing your data on paper is not cutting it. Google Drive is not cutting it. It needs to be in a proper CRM that can give you data about your donors and about your supporters. So that's number 1. Number 2 is an email marketing system. Now, that being said, there's 2 ways you can build this. You can either have a CRM on one hand, and you can have an email marketing system on another, and they can talk to each other. So that's called an integration, and that doesn't cost thousands of dollars. We were just talking before this call. Actually, Bloomerang has 2 now. They have MailChimp and Constant Contact, so it's very easy to combine these 2. It's just a couple of clicks if you go into the integration section. If you're using something like Keela, you're using something like Virtuous or Every Action, these actually have email marketing platforms built in. So you're going to be able to create a source of truth for your data where you're going to see what one individual's entire interaction with your organization looks like. You'll be able to see their donor history. You'll be able to see what kind of contact information you have for them. You will be able to see any notes that a past executive director, MGO, has put in that donor's account. You're also going to be able to see what mailings and email promotions they've received. So this is going to be super, super, super important for you as you're planning campaigns, as you're trying to understand donor behavior, as you're looking at data analytics. You need to be able to see the complete picture of a donor's interactions, or just a supporter who hasn't become a donor yet. You want to know what they're doing with your organization. So after this presentation, the first thing I want you to do is go find whoever manages your fundraising, your marketing, your social media, whoever it is, and you want to ask them 3 questions. Where is our donor data being housed? Where is supporter contact information being housed? How are we sending emails to our supporters? You ask those questions, you find out if it's one system that does everything, if it's 2 or 3 systems. You want to say, can we consolidate? Can we get rid of any of those? And once we have the right ones in place, do they talk to each other? And most of them do have pre-built integrations. So if you know you're using MailChimp and Bloomerang, a simple email over to Bloomerang would be like, hey, can we integrate these? And they're going to tell you, just put in a couple. You just go follow the integrations tab, set these things up, and it's integrated. So that is really going to be a game changer, and that's going to help you scale properly. Okay. And I see a couple questions popping up, but I think we're going to wait until the end for questions. So sit tight.
Julie, can you repeat the 3 questions, the 3?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, 3 questions. 1, where are you housing donor data? 2, where are you housing supporter contact information? So that could be the same thing, their address, their email. And 3, how are you sending emails to your supporters? So those 3 questions are going to get you where that data is. And if the answer is Excel and the answer is MailChimp over here and this over here, but they don't talk to each other, so we have duplicate lists and we have to manually download and upload, that's not going to work for us in 2024, okay? So we need to fix that. All right, awesome. 3rd trend, attracting new supporters with content offers. A lot of you are probably doing some form of this already. You're doing this probably with the newsletter sign up on your website. And what you're offering is, hey, we're going to send you a newsletter. It's going to have certain details about our mission and our impact and our work. And we want to give you that in exchange for your email address. So that's the most basic form of a content offer. And that's probably how most of you are building your email lists right now. However, I like to do this with pretty much every one of our clients. It's one of the first things that we do when we take on a new client is I go to their website, put in my email, and hit subscribe. That's the second task that you guys have when you get off of this presentation. I want you to go to your website, put in your email, and see what happens. Because way too often, the answer is nothing. And that's really just a shame because you are missing out on people who are signing up to your website. They come, they want to receive updates from you, but because that form is not connected, that form is built in Squarespace or WordPress, or it's linked up to some Google Sheet somewhere, those emails are not going to wherever you're sending your emails from, and they're just going into a black hole. So it's a super easy way. It would take you probably 5 minutes to figure out and 15 minutes to fix. If you talk to the right person on your team and say, hey, this needs to be linked up to our CRM or our email marketing software, whichever one makes sense, that's going to be a game changer for you. And it's literally going to take you a couple minutes. So I always like to point that out because, yeah, just way too often, nothing happens. So that's a low-hanging fruit in terms of a content offer. We actually use content offers now in our business where we're developing a lot of free resources. This webinar itself offered by Bloomerang is a free resource. You guys signed up And I would assume that after this, Bloomerang is going to continue sending you some marketing materials. If you're not a current Bloomerang customer, they're going to try to convert you to their services. So that's what a content offer is. And especially with digital, it's just so easy to create free content that adds value and attracts people to your organization. So I want to give you a couple creative suggestions for content offers. You can do ebooks or guides. You can offer case studies or success stories about your mission work. You can offer your own webinars or online workshops. And also something we're seeing that's becoming quite popular are these toolkits or templates. And so an example would be maybe if you're an environmental group and you're doing cleanup work, you could do a case study about the work that you were doing and talk about maybe you did some soil tests or water tests before and after the cleanup. And as a result of your work, there was less pollution or there were less toxins in the water after you guys did your work. That would be a great case study. You can offer it on your website. You have a little sign up form. And then once people have signed up, they get their download, and then they would go into your email list. So these are some really creative ways. Hopefully you are starting to implement them at your organization, and you can share these on social media. That's where the social media really comes to play. It's going to be getting those free value offers out to your audience and showing them what you're doing without asking for that financial commitment yet. I think I'm losing my voice too, Catalina. All right, so I just wanted to show you all a sample funnel of what you would do with email marketing once someone does a free download. So for instance, let's say that you had an ebook that you were offering. You offer this ebook on your website. Maybe you are a domestic violence center and you have a new ebook from your executive director, and it's talking about their experience with domestic violence and talking about tips and just how to cope with that if you've had a history of that in the past in your personal life. So you have people coming to your website, they're really interested, they want to download this ebook, they give you their email. So the next thing that would happen is they would receive an email saying, here's your download with a link to the guide or the ebook. Then the next email they would get might be a welcome message from the executive director. This would be followed up by an email maybe a day or two later saying, subscribe to our newsletter. Here's what the newsletter includes. Here's how often you receive it. Then you might get another email a few days later talking about your organization's mission, the work that you're doing on domestic violence, and the impact that you're having in your community. Once you have worked them through this process, then you would send them an email with some calls to action. These are ways to get involved. There could be volunteering, there could be events in your community, and you could mention ways to give. And then at the end, you always want to include a hard ask, call to action, show your support, here's where you can donate. So what you're really doing there is you're attracting them with that high value free content, but then you're showing them after they receive that value, all of this other value that you offer, sort of like an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, you're showing them more what's beneath the surface. So now you've moved them through and you can begin to convert people into donors. Okay, and now before, I don't know if anyone's asking, but before you're like, oh my God, I have to send all these emails out, how am I going to do this? Another huge trend, which has been a game changer for our business and for pretty much all of the nonprofits that we have worked with over the last 2 years, is automation. If the email marketing platform that you're using doesn't automate, get rid of it. You need a new one. You need to be working with something that can offer you the ability to create these funnels. Because once you set them up, you write the email copy. It's as simple as saying, okay, email 1, send immediately based on this trigger. Email 2, send 3 days later. Email 3, and so on. You set them and you forget them. You will literally be raising money while you sleep. It's not a joke. And then it just becomes a volume game. As you start moving people into your organization, you're attracting them with the high value that you're offering. You're moving them through these funnels and they are converting because you are making a very compelling case for support. So these are really simple. They're literally drag and drop, creating these funnels. I know Virtuous has it built-in automation. Keela has built-in automation. I know MailChimp, obviously, Constant Contact. I don't know about the older ones like Razor's Edge or Donor Perfect. I don't really work with those, but anyone that's pretty much on the newer side, if they're doing email marketing, they are trying to get you automation. So that's something you want to look into and implement as soon as possible. So I did want to give you a couple examples. I'm sure you've heard of having a welcome series. You've seen like the funnel that I just went through, but a couple other interesting, more creative ideas for having a funnel. One that I had in mind yesterday, I was thinking about impact stories. And so this is something that you could have set up to just go out every 30 days to your audience. And it's like a soft, nurturing kind of email campaign. You're not necessarily asking for donations. You might have a little donation at the bottom, donate button, but what you're doing is you are complimenting everything else that they're receiving about your work with these testimonials. So you can, in here, I would use something like nonprofit storytelling, reach out to your network, talk to people who've benefited from the work that you've done, ask if they'd be willing to sit for a couple pictures, share their story. You lay that out in an email, and you set them up to trigger every 30 days. So as people enter the system, they'll be receiving these once a month. And it's just a really nice way to highlight and just punctuate the other work that you're doing by sharing these testimonials. So I thought that was a nice idea. And I know you all have so many stories that you probably don't even realize that you have. I know we have experiences like that where we're like, oh, we don't really know. What do we do? And then you talk to a client, and your client's like, you've completely changed my life. So I'm sure that all of you have those experiences as well. And that's something that your donors are really going to want to hear about. Okay, so more general, here's an automation example. It's called a behavioral trigger campaign. And I'm leaving it general on purpose because you can really do a lot with these. An example that I would say would be easy to start is you could have, well, actually like a super easy one is like 1 year after they've given, had to send them an email and say, hey, it's been 1 year since your first donation. Super easy. You can set that up. You would just set the trigger in the system, email donors exactly 12 months after their first gift. The key to that is that you need, like we talked about in the second trend, you need to have your donor data speaking to your email marketing system. So your email marketing system needs to be able to pull that trigger based on donor giving history. But once that's set up, it's really easy to build out these triggers. One that I like is cumulative giving. So donors aren't necessarily keeping track of what they're giving, and sometimes they might even be surprised to learn how much they've given in a 5 or 10 year period. So you can actually set up in your system like a cumulative giving trigger. So when they reach $1,000, maybe if that's a threshold for a major gift, you could have the system set up and say, okay, Mrs. Smith, when like she hit $1,000, she's given $200, $300, $500, and it finally added up and it triggered $1,000. You can send an email out to her with that trigger and say, wow, we're so impressed. We just got news that you've donated a total of $1,000 since becoming a donor at this organization. We are so grateful and just so impressed by your dedication. And we just wanted to express our thanks. Super easy. You set that up once in the system, and anyone that hits that milestone immediately gets that email. You don't have to do anything, but that donor is getting reminded and is feeling very recognized for what they've done, as opposed to poor experience where they've given donations several times, they've never heard back, or they've just received a very standard donation receipt. They don't know what you're up to, and they just don't really feel like what they're giving to, they're not really getting back anything for that. So I like these triggers. I like that you can set up a bunch of them. You can set up a birthday one. You can set up a holiday one. The main thing is that they need to be evergreen. So it can't have something that's like, trigger this to send out about a webinar that's happening next week, because it's going to be out of date after that webinar happens. So you want these things to be something that can hold up for 6 to 12 months. And then the last one, I know this is one that you've all pretty much heard of before, but a lapsed donor re-engagement series is a really nice touch to have built into your system so that when a donor is creeping towards becoming lapsed at that 1 year mark, you have some emails that are going to go out to them and try to fold them back in to opening your emails, to engaging. And that's the other nice thing about having these integrated systems. When I worked on the nonprofit side, there was a donor who was a very large major donor. He gave about $500,000 a year. And he was getting older and no one could really get in touch with him anymore. And they were very concerned that he was not going to continue giving. And we were able to go into the system and see that even though he was no longer really present at events or showing up in the way that he used to, he was opening every single email. And so we were able to see, oh, he's still engaged. He's still reading the press releases. He's still reading the newsletter. We can see what he's clicking. And they were able to tell, oh, well, maybe if we just email him, he'll respond, and he did. So, but having a series like this, that is going to help you just catch people before they go out the door. And you can say, hey, we've noticed that you haven't engaged in a while. Here's a quick survey. We're just curious what you might be interested in this year. Here's some things we're up to, and get them to take any action, even just clicking a link, responding to a survey, taking a poll, and that's going to remind them of why they were interested in your organization in the first place. So that is just a good standard one to always have in addition to a welcome series. Okay, so this is a trend that it's not really a trend, something you should be doing, like you've always been doing, hopefully, but now you don't have an excuse anymore because you're going to have a really great email marketing system in place. And this is another thing, if your email marketing system does not allow you to personalize, like you can't insert a merge field like dear first name and it will fill in the first name, get rid of that email marketing system. You need one that can do merge fields. And this is going to allow you to segment based on giving behaviors and interactions. And it's going to allow you to personalize the emails. So as we talked about in the last one, that donor who hit that $1,000 threshold, you could very easily, with merge fields and personalization, put in a list of their past gifts in the email and say, hey, here's all the past gifts that you've made in the last 5 years. And you could have their name. You can have their state, where they're from. You can have these all built into the email and merge fields. And that segmentation or that personalization is really going to make the difference and make that donor feel like, wow, this organization is paying attention. Meanwhile, the segmentation aspect of it, you can look back at the lead that they came in off of initially. So if we go back to the domestic violence example, maybe you have a couple different programs that you offer. Maybe you have a shelter, maybe you work on domestic violence, and then maybe you also have a soup kitchen or other things that you're doing. If someone came in specifically on the issue of domestic violence, maybe that is their core issue and that's why they support you, as opposed to the other issues that they're interested in, but that's not their passion. You can have a tag applied in your system to anyone who downloads that specific guide and say domestic violence interest in the tag. And then when you have a new initiative coming out, or you have a new story, or you have a new fundraiser that is focusing on that core issue, you can specifically target those people. So you're only going to be emailing the people who have already raised their hand and said that that is their passion and that is why they support your work. So a couple stats to just back that up. According to a recent article from Nonprofit Hub, segmented emails have a 100% higher click-through rate than non-segmented campaigns. Likewise, personalized email campaigns have a 29% higher open rate and a 41% higher click-through rate than non-personalized campaigns. I want you all to think, stop thinking with a fundraising brain when you're thinking about this, and think about your own personal interests. If you're an online shopper like me, my algorithm on Instagram, where I spend most of my social media time, is so laser focused into the brands that I like at this point that if I saw something that was just out of whack for my algorithm, I'd be like, what's the algorithm doing wrong? They don't get me. I laugh sometimes when I look at my husband's algorithm because we might both be sitting there on Instagram and mine is, I don't know, like yours, Catalina, like flowers and cute clothes and dresses and whatever, just really pretty girly stuff. And my husband's is like people jumping out of helicopters. And there's just two different worlds. And if I saw helicopter videos showing up in my Instagram, I'd be pretty confused. So your algorithm on social media knows you, and people are coming to expect that level of personalization in the communications that they receive. So putting your fundraising brain back on, you don't want to be emailing people about programs that they have expressed zero interest in. You want to just be focusing in on the audience that has already expressed interest. And if you don't know, send out a survey. And you can just have a box in there that's like, check which issues you're most interested in. If you have an animal shelter and you have cats and dogs and then other exotic animals, you can say, which ones are you which one's your preference? And then if you have an appeal that's about dogs or cats, you segment those and you focus in on that target audience. So, and the cool thing is that the surveys will just apply the tag for you on the back end. So if they select dog, you can have an automation in your system, apply interest dog to this person's profile. And once you kind of get the hang of that, you realize that the automations are going to do a lot of the work for you. And the last one, a lot of you guessed at the beginning, AI, experimenting with AI. And I almost didn't put this in because I thought, well, you see it all over LinkedIn, and I'm just seeing it pretty much every day right now, using AI, and it's a little overused. That being said, I've been using it for probably almost a year now, using ChatGPT and other things to help me with copywriting. And my mom only just got on ChatGPT or ChatGPS, she was calling it, last week, and she was just mind blown by it. So I'm assuming that out of the hundreds of people on this call right now, there's a couple holdouts. Stop holding out. Just go try it. It's not going to replace your writing. It's not going to replace you. I still write the things that I write. I love writing. I write a blog every week. I wrote this presentation, but I'd be lying if I told you I didn't take each of these slides and put it in. I actually use Copy AI, paste it in and just say, clarify this. Help me summarize this. And it's so helpful. It's so much better than just going through and copying and pasting and trying to write it yourself. So it's been, from a brainstorming perspective, it's really helpful just to sort of jog some ideas and get you going when you're planning a campaign. So I listed copywriting for fundraising. And the two others, I've seen it being used in a cute way for chatbots for donor engagement on your website. So I wanted to include that as a fun idea. And then finally, predictive analytics for audience targeting. So you might not be able to get this from something like ChatGPT, but I know Donor Search and Wealth Engine, and there's one called Dataro I've been seeing recently. If you're using Every Action, they have something called Donor Trends. So there's a lot of tools, and I think you're going to see a lot more tools being developed in this year, especially as people start to get the hang of it and applying AI to specific industries, of analyzing your donor base and being able to pull out for you the best people to contact today. I know Virtuous has a tool like that. And instead of just looking at a list of 1,500 contacts and saying, I don't know, predictive analytics are going to be able to tell you these 50 donors based on their giving history are most likely to become recurring donors. So rather than emailing your whole base, hey, become a recurring donor, you can just target those 50 people with an email, and you're going to see a higher conversion rate, a lower unsubscribe rate, and it's just going to make more sense for your targeted email marketing strategy. So I do encourage you to look up predictive analytics, just as a tool that you might be able to implement at your organization. I think that is all the trends that we have for today. Hopefully I didn't go over. All right, we're good on time. Kate, we are at the Q&A section. And just a note here, like I said at the beginning, if you want some fun, just follow us at Relatable Nonprofit on Instagram. And you can also visit our website, divineparker.com, which actually yesterday became relatablononprofit.com. So either one should work. And you can access a ton of our free resources there if you're interested in learning more.
And also, we're going to throw up a poll real quick. And if you let us know that you'd like to hear more from Julia and Catalina, we're going to pass that along to them. And also, if you'd like to get a demo of Bloomerang or see an online tour, let us know that as well. We can show you how you can use some of these features in Bloomerang. While we have that poll up, let's get to a few questions. What is the recommendation on email subscribers who are not donors? Should they be in the CRM or just in the mail service like MailChimp or Constant Contact?
Yeah, it's going to depend on if you have an all-in-one solution or if you have something where you have a CRM and you have an email marketing system separate, which I'm assuming that you do. In that case, if you have two separate systems, you want to make sure that the flow of the data makes sense. So you don't necessarily want a two-way street where MailChimp's pushing data into Bloomerang and Bloomerang's pushing it back, because that can sometimes confuse it. I would say it's also going to depend on it's going to depend on your subscriber count. Like if you're on a budget and like you don't want to go over 3,000 people in your CRM, because it's going to bump you to the next payment bracket or a higher tier of the CRM, you might not want to put everyone into your CRM and double the number of contacts that you have. So if it's an all-in-one solution, which I do sometimes prefer for smaller organizations, you can have everyone in there together. If they're separate, you might wait until they've become a donor to add them to the CRM, is probably what I would say.
How would I evaluate AI tools filtering my donors? Some of the algorithms would probably evaluate better than others, I would imagine.
AI tools, is that the question? So for predictive analytics, I'm assuming. It's again going to depend on like your budget. I know there's some great tools out there. I haven't seen donor search or wealth engines tools, but I would assume that they're going to be pretty good once they start implementing AI. So if you've got the budget, I would just start with them. Dataro is one that I mentioned. I actually just met with them a few months ago. DATARO. All their websites are going to have demos about what they can do, but I would meet with a salesperson and you're going to want to ask them questions about what results they're going to give you. And they're going to give you back. It's going to depend on your data. So before you go and spend a ton of money on getting predictive analytics done, you should probably spend some time internally with your team and be honest with yourself about the quality of your data, because if you've just got a list of names and donations and not much else, the results can only give you what it can give you based on what you're feeding the system. So if you really have pretty sparse data, basic data, I would wait on that kind of predictive analytics stuff until you've been able to put out some surveys and get some feedback and start to build a more robust picture of who your donors are. Do that for a year, 18 months, and then say, okay, we've got a pretty good picture of our donors now. We have this nice CRM. Now I want to go look and do a couple demos. I'd look on LinkedIn. I keep seeing a lot of new ones, even like consultants who are coming out with their own proprietary sort of algorithms. So I think it's going to change a lot this year. I would just keep an eye out for what there is, especially if you can't afford a premium software like a donor search.
Whoops. I've been told that emails should not be sent to constituents who have not given some type of permission to contact them in that manner. Any advice on that?
It's tricky. It depends where you live. If you're outside of the US, the rules are different. So if you're in Canada, if you're in Europe, look up the rules. There are requirements. In the US, typically, I know that you want to have an opt-in on your website, so they check the box. However, it gets a little blurry based on, you know, if there was a double opt-in or if they gave you their email, it is okay to contact them until they unsubscribe. It's not okay to, if you have like an Excel spreadsheet of people you know who unsubscribed, it is definitely not okay to continue contacting them. So just make sure that you give them that unsubscribe option. I actually think it's required in all the email marketing systems. They're just going to put that button there for people to unsubscribe at this point. The trick is, instead of just having a global unsubscribe option at the bottom of the email, you want it to be an update your subscription preferences. And what that means is if they click, they can say, I want to keep the newsletter, but stop sending me fundraising appeals, or stop sending me whatever else that you send, my events. That's going to help you keep people on your list longer than if they just hit the global unsubscribe. They're out of the system. And I've actually seen people who work at nonprofits test the unsubscribe, and then they get locked out of their own system and they can't get their own emails anymore. So definitely have it say update your subscription preferences, and that way people can choose what they want to get and not get.
Do you have any advice for the fact that some email host systems will not let emails from constant contact through? Example, if we have the work email of a donor, but their job for security reasons blocks constant contact.
Oh, yeah, that's tough. I have seen that happen before. I don't know. I don't work in constant contact a lot, so I don't know the specifics. I know that I've seen that happen with major donors before, and they have like a weird kind of host that, or they have very strict security, let's say if they're a foundation. I've seen that happen before, and we've just reached out to the foundation and we said, hey, we saw that you subscribe to receive these emails, but your system's blocking us. We're getting feedback that you can't receive this. Can you put us on your approved list to receive emails? And that's worked, where they've just like let the security down for your system. That's worked in the past. The other thing that you all should do, and I know the rules are just changing on this. I'm not a tech person, so I don't know exactly how you say it, but updating the DNS. There's basically like a code that you put into your system. If you look up like white labeling the DNS, it's going to make the difference, because it's going to make your system look more legit, basically approved, rather than if you don't have your DNS white labeled, it's going to make you look spammier to things like Gmail or Outlook. So look that up, and that's going to help with your spam rates.
Do you know if Constant Contact has a feature to have a new subscriber fill out a quick survey where they can mark what they are interested in and then tag them that way?
I haven't done a ton of work in Constant Contact. I've worked more in MailChimp. I know MailChimp has that, and I would be very surprised if Constant Contact did not. But that, and I don't know, Kate, I don't know if you know that. I'm not positive.
Know that.
Yeah, I would almost assume so. Most of them do. If it doesn't, if you look up in their FAQ section and they don't have that, something that we've been doing as a workaround is using Typeform. And Typeform is literally just surveys. They're kind of like Google surveys. We use that when we do a quiz or we do a survey, and then you use Zapier or Zapier, I don't know how you say it. And you can, if you have anyone who knows just a little bit of technology, an IT person or whoever, it's super easy to set up. And what it will do is it will basically scrape that survey and take the email name and whatever their response was, and it will like basically create like an extension cord, and it will plug that information back into your CRM. So I would really think, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Sarah just dropped a link in the chat too on a webinar that we had on email platform updates about spam. So
Okay.
that way, if anybody wants to check that out as a resource.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's great. And I would say, like, whatever email provider you're using, get on their email list, because they will notify you that when the rules and the regulations change about what they're going to change to stay compliant. And sometimes that means you also have to make adjustments in your account to stay compliant. So, and I know I literally just saw one last week that came out about staying compliant. So try to stay on top of that, because that will help your spam rates, your bounce rates, and all of that.
I'm going to grab this question out of the chat before I lose it. Can you give examples of how much some of the suggestions that you gave might cost?
Okay, yeah. Well, all right, out of all those suggestions, for technology, there's a spectrum, and it really doesn't matter if you're on a shoestring budget. If you're going freebie, you're gonna get Give Butter, and you're gonna maybe do MailChimp at the most basic, like $10 a month plan. So if that's the system you're putting together, because that's what you can afford right now, that's what you're doing. If you're going a little bit higher, you're going to Bloomerang, you're going to Keela. I don't know, it's $150 a month, maybe a few $100 a month to set that up. If you're going up to Virtuous, that's more like starting out 5,000 a year. If you're going up to Every Action, that's enterprise level. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars a year, but you're getting super, super heavy duty technology equipment. So there's going to be a range. We have a couple blogs on our website about like the different CRMs, if that's what you're looking at, but there are totally free options. Money is not an excuse for not having a CRM. So other than that, most of the other stuff is just copywriting. So it just takes time. And I know people a lot of times are really focused on, oh, I got to be frontline fundraising. I got to be out here running this event, doing this, showing my face. But if you just set aside a day a week for a couple weeks and you wrote out some of those emails that we're talking about and you laid them out and set them up in your system, you set them and forget them and you go about your day and you go back to what you were doing, but now they're working in the background 24/7 and you're just paying whatever your monthly subscription is. And if you're working in MailChimp, it's like, I think the basics like $10 or $25 a month. So it's not cost prohibitive to have these kinds of systems in place.
Let's see here. What if donors are giving in kind and we ask for their email address, but how do we ask for or assure that as a permission to send newsletters? Where can those permissions be housed?
Okay, they're giving in kind. They give their email address.
But maybe they didn't give permission for that email to be for newsletters.
Okay, again, I mean, if they're giving their email and you're putting them into the general email subscription, I don't think there's a rule against that. I mean, you can check for sure, but as far as I know, that's a technicality. You can always ask them. What I'd probably do is if they gave you the email, I'd have an automation set up that when you enter them into your system, it's an in-kind automation. Thank you for your in-kind gift. We've received it. Appreciate your work. Would you like to receive emails from us? Click here if you want to be on the safe side. They click there and then they can go in and subscribe. Otherwise, you just tag them as in-kind and you just don't enroll them in the general emails. But it doesn't mean you can't keep their email for one-on-one communications.
You mentioned one-way communications. How do external email systems deliver info for analytics or survey results to CRMs if lists are created in CRM versus email provider?
All right, hang on. Can you read that again?
Yeah. How do external email systems deliver info for analytics or survey results to the CRM if the lists are created in CRM versus email provider?
Okay, so I'll use the example of, I don't know if I'll use Kindful and MailChimp, but it's called, I mean, it's an integration and most of them are native, like are pre-built by the software companies because, I mean, we were just having this conversation, Kate, before the call, but Bloomerang just added constant contact. So the software companies will pre-build these integrations, anticipating what kind of data you want to pass between the two systems. So if you are collecting a survey and you're doing that survey in MailChimp, you can have that information push over to your CRM if that's going to be your source of truth. It depends based on the systems that you're using, the complexity of the integrations, but usually what they'll do is they sync once a day, and you just have to have matching fields in both. So if it's like an interest field, or a favorite color field in the survey, and then you have favorite color in the CRM, and then you go to the integration section. In Kindful, I know it was literally like a mapping thing. You would say map to map, and you would just connect the dot physically on the screen, and then you hit sync, and it's going to take anyone who has that field filled out for favorite color, and it's going to sync it over to the other system that you have connected. So it will be different for every system that you're using. If you don't have a CRM right now, you're just building this stuff out, or you're considering changing, that's like the first thing that I recommend when doing your CRM selection process is making sure that it's going to integrate with what you use or what you're planning to use. I've seen terrible horror stories of people building out these massive programs, and then they realize that they want to add in an event planning or a volunteer management or something, and they don't integrate. And it's a disaster, and you waste a lot of money having to move. So highly recommend, if you're at the beginning, to make sure that you're asking those questions early in the sales process, and really hammer the salespeople. And if they can't answer, ask for someone who can, about the integrations, because sometimes
And we have
oh, go ahead.
We have a free course that teaches you how to go through the CRM selection process. It's like 45 minutes, and there are discounts in there for Bloomerang too.
Yeah, you can get that on our website in our freebie section.
We have one last question. This person is new to their role at their nonprofit. Historically, the development and comms team has not sent out non-solicitation emails. Do you have any advice on where or how to start? Things such as programming or updates, etc.
Yep. Okay, so that's super common too. When I worked the nonprofit side, you don't realize that because previously digital or marketing wasn't really a part of the development fundraising piece, but the two circles have become more and more of a Venn diagram with a lot more overlap. And I really do recommend that the development team and the marketing teams are working hand in hand, because they're not really different. Sometimes there's different populations that are just, you're not going to solicit your beneficiaries necessarily. But a lot of that stuff is going to be all working towards the same goal of moving people through the pipeline of going from supporter, a subscriber, to a volunteer, to a supporter, etc. It sounds like what you're asking for is an annual communications plan of sorts, just something to send out throughout the year. So you want to have a combination of educational, inspirational, calls to action, and actual solicitations. And I think the easiest way to do this, I just made one yesterday for a client, is you just go month by month. And if you are like new and you don't have a ton of resources, one thing a month. If it's January, you're sending out a Happy New Year postcard. February, or email. February, you're sending out a direct mail piece to your top 100 donors. March, you're doing a webinar. And maybe you just say, we're going to send out one email newsletter a month. And you just start to layer them in. I do it in a Google Sheet. But don't make it too complicated. Consistency and quality are going to be better than just bombarding your subscribers with a deluge of content. So make it, and always think about the value that it's providing before you decide to take on all the work of producing a webinar every week. Maybe quarterly is a better place to start. But we do have an annual communications. I don't know if it's available yet, but we do have some kind of an annual communications template as well. You can check our website, but if you Google as well, annual comms templates, a ton of stuff is going to come up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia and Catalina, for being here today. We really appreciate your time, and thanks to all of you who joined us today. We hope to see you again soon on a Bloomerang webinar.
Thank you, everyone. Best of luck.